Good evening, everybody. Hello. Welcome back to the Minutes with Milo show. So, another invigorating topic on alternative energy. So, what I said in my post, if you were lucky enough to be one of the ones that received it, you can sign up to receive my post by becoming a subscriber to YouTube. Turn on the notification bell. I always put up my stream and then post it on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, all those popular places. Read it, did it, saw it, read it again. But anyway, my last show that I did on alternative energies, I got long-winded on a couple other things. And they were alternative energies, but I didn't get to touch on some of the ones that I wanted to. So I thought, everybody was so interested and enthusiastic about the first one. All one of you, two of you maybe. Might have been three, including myself. Three. So, anyway, I thought I'd just do it again. Why not? At first it don't succeed, try again. So, tonight we're going to talk about some of the, they're strange, but they're potentials, I guess, depending on your point of view. So, right now I'm going to see if anybody's going to step in, because sometimes my regular dudes and gals don't get in right at the first. You know what I mean? They don't want to be the first one to get in the pool. They want to see how things are, and then they'll get in. But we'll see what happens, and then we'll just go from there. See, there's Robert. He's on, but not on time. But that's okay. He's here. So it'll be me and Robert entertaining the world. So he'll put periods in his chat. I don't know what that means, but he likes to put periods. Sometimes he'll do it 2 or 3 times. Maybe it just means that he doesn't have anything to say or he's thinking. So let's see. Where do we want to jump off tonight? Get started on it. So we talked about alternative energies compared to fossil fuels, because that's what everybody hits everybody, right in the pocketbook. Talked about electricity. That's, wind and solar's a way to get electricity, but you have to store it. Storing electricity in batteries is not like storing 5 gallons of gas. Once that stuff's in the gas can, it pretty much stays. It's supposed to stay in batteries too, but it doesn't a lot of times. So tonight I think I'm going to start with something that was similar. I think we talked about hydrogen cells, running cars on hydrogen as opposed to just straight up gasoline. And one thing that I thought, I don't think I mentioned it last time, gasoline serves 2 important functions in internal combustion engines. All right. Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much. That's quite right. In the chat, in the OBS software, I close out the YouTube because I'm trying to conserve CPU usages so I can keep my frames per second up. But anyway, in OBS chat, if I don't make it real tall, which takes up a lot of the screen, then I don't get to see the ones at the bottom until they're bumped up. So Robert's being a good fellow, putting in a couple of periods, which ba-bump, 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 pushes things to the top. So you continue on the brain activity and do what you think's right, because it does help when I see the periods come up, now I'll know, oh, there's not something I've been missing. So, hydrogen. Talked about hydrogen cells, I think, last time, and how they, there is a hydrogen engine out there. But one of the things that, another name, I guess, that's been kind of interchanged with hydrogen is water-powered cars. And so when you say water-powered, water fuel, hold on to that. Let me jump back to gasoline performs two important functions in an internal combustion engine. All right, so it is the fuel, okay, so it is the power that, makes the engine run. But the other side of that is it is also a lubricant, and maybe it's a third function. Well, no, I'll say it's a lubricant, okay? And I know it is a lubricant because the less gasoline you have in a mixture, the more friction there is in the cylinders with the pistons and the rings and all that kind of stuff. Because now under the piston, the oil is there. And on top, when the piston goes down, there's rings that scrape the oil off the side of the wall. So that as it goes up, there is no oil as the piston goes up. So the mixture of gasoline and air in there lubricates the cylinders before it pops, blows up, shoves the piston back down. So if you're running more air than gasoline, it's called a lean mixture. It's more efficient to burn, right, because there's less gasoline wasted. But if you don't have like a little bit of gasoline waste, you lose lubrication. It increases the temperature of the cylinders, which, makes things hotter. So you can actually burn up an engine running it too lean. And interesting enough, there's people out there that force their engines to run extremely lean, and they try to keep them cool. And it's kind of a competition. It's kind of like a challenge to this group to get extreme gas mileage out of cars. And of course, aerodynamics play a big part. Weight plays a big part. Rolling friction, or no rolling friction, if you minimize that. Skinny tires plays a big part. And if you can find them, like any other topic, you can almost find forums on anything. But it's very interesting that they'll take a car that makes 30 miles to the gallon from the factory, modify it, do what they can to it, and it'll get 50 miles to the gallon. That might be extreme. But one of the ways they do it is leaning it out. And then, it just wears the engine out quicker. But, they're getting a lot more gas mileage out of it. So, why do I say that? Well, because if you start to use the theory or the idea of internal combustions with the pistons and the rings and all this, and you start taking out gasoline, then, you're removing not just, you're not just changing the fuels, but you're potentially removing lubrication from the engine, which premature wear. So, leads me jump back to hydrogen. Hydrogen, as far as I know, its best case use is a supplement to gasoline to increase it. One of the things I've often thought about, and I haven't looked at it, is why can't you just squirt just a little puff of oxygen in there? It's highly flammable. Highly flammable. So if you just put a little in that little mixture. Now, the whole thing, air contains oxygen, just the air you breathe, of course, otherwise we'd die. So oxygen is already in the mixture with the gas. The air we breathe is not 100% oxygen, or we'd all die, probably. So let's call it, it has its own elements, its own mixture in there that we're breathing. I can't remember, nitrogen and all this other kind of stuff's in there. So if you enriched it with oxygen, it would burn very well. Hotter, quicker, faster, more powerful. Why doesn't anybody think about that? You put nitrogen or hydrogen in there, and it supplements it. Nitrous oxide is the same thing. If you know anything about drag racing, they'll spray in nitrous oxide. The more nitrous oxide you put into it, the more gas you can put in there, creates a bigger boom, boosts horsepower. But it doesn't necessarily increase gas mileage, right? So it just increases horsepower, torque. Maybe gas mileage. I don't know. I don't know if anybody's ever tried to use just a small breath of, nitrous oxide just to kind of, make that car go a little further. I don't know. Maybe it would. But hydrogen. Okay. There was a guy in the 70s, Stanley Myers, I think was his name, and he said he had invented a car that ran off water. Now, he didn't say hydrogen. He said he invented a car that ran on water. And he could take tap water, bottled water, all this poured into these fuel cells and run without gasoline. Okay? So, let's see what we've got here. I pulled up his little story on. And we talked about this a little bit last time about why some conspiracy theorists may say there's a reason why there's not a plethora of alternative energies out there being used, is because big oil ain't going to give up billions of dollars. So if they find something that's suitable, the theory goes, conspiracy theory goes, that, they buy it, steal it, squash it, kill the inventor, whatever they have to do to keep it quiet. And this is one of those times where that supposedly happened. That this gentleman, let me get myself here. I've got to hide my phone number. Oh, that reminds me, I have my Google Voice up and running. So, if anybody wants to try to call, we will try to see if we can answer that. Okay. So, let me get myself out of here just a little bit more so you can read some of this. Okay. So, Stanley Myers water fuel cell. Now this is Wikipedia, so take it for what it is. It wasn't a perpetual motion machine. Okay, it wasn't a machine. Perpetual motion means once you get it started, it never stops. It produces the same amount or more energy than is used to run it. Okay, so I don't know. Let's just say that it takes, 5 kilowatts to run a motor, and it turns a generator that produces 5 kilowatts. Then technically, in a perpetual motion machine, you take that 5 kilowatts that's being produced by the motor that's running on 5 kilowatts, roll it around, put it on the inside, the end, put power into the motor. It would then turn the generator that makes the 5 kilowatts that goes back into the motor to make the 5 kilowatts into 5 kilowatts, and it just perpetual motion goes round and around and around and around. It makes enough to run itself. That's not what Stanley Myers water fuel car was. All right, so it was, I put 5 gallons of water in this dune buggy. I'll have to show you a picture of it. It was a nice little Volkswagen, looked like dune buggy. And he would run it, drive it down the road, and go to wherever he was going to go. Let's see. No, that's not it. Let's go to Stanley Myers. Let's just put water car. Okay, so it wasn't a perpetual motion machine, like that Wikipedia was saying. Okay. Oh, we don't want to watch videos. Stop that. All right, so let's see if we get this up. This is on Reddit. Okay, so it was a dune buggy. Okay, so Reddit Weird Wheels. Oh, this is cool. I might have to I might have to do a little video or show on this. That's pretty cool. But anyway, it was a dune buggy, and he said that he could put water in it, and it would just drive down the road. All right. So it wasn't his invention wasn't perpetual motion. Okay. It was using water as a fuel. Now he didn't say I'd take it. I think he made a fuel cell that did, but he called it water powered car. And the story is that it was secret, and him and his brother, and like every mad scientist inventor, he kept it secret, blah, blah, blah. And, he had one that worked, and he never would give anybody the secret. He never would show anybody, and nobody believed him. And, he was always trying to find the investor to try to, make this a big production and all this other kind of stuff. All right. So, as the story goes, Big Oil was after him. Okay. And they didn't want him to do this, and they tried to stop him all the time. And so at some point he was meeting in a restaurant with these anyway, before I get that, let's say media coverage. Okay, so in a news report, Ohio TV station, Myers showed a dune buggy he claimed was powered by his water fuel cell. He stated that only 22 gallons of water were required to travel from Los Angeles to New York. Furthermore, Myers claimed to have replaced the spark plugs with injectors that introduced a hydrogen-oxygen mixture into the engine cylinders. The water was subjected to electrical resonance that disassociated it into its basic atomic makeup. So, if you know anything about Nikola Tesla, he was into all kinds of things. But resonance was one of his big things. He had I wouldn't know, I can't remember, he didn't call it a resonance machine, but he had a device that created frequencies. Okay? It was a frequency generator that he swore if he hooked it, and he had it at one point hooked to a skyscraper or a hotel building, the infrastructure of it, and turned it on, if you could match the frequencies of any structure, device, living, non-living, I guess, anything, he believed everything had its own frequency in nature. If you could tune into that and you could amplify that, it would shake itself apart. And he swore that he had to slam and destroy his device that he had attached to a steel beam in a hotel, then that it was about to shake the thing apart. Literally, it was like an earthquake that he invented and turned on and off with this little thing. So he called it frequency. To me, that's resonance is about the same thing. If something resonates, it has a certain frequency that it vibrates at. To me, those are the same thing. Maybe I'm wrong, but anyway. So he says it used electrical resonance to disassociate it into its basic makeup. The way they separate water is electrolysis. They, use electricity to force the hydrogen and oxygen to separate. So I think what he was saying is he had came up with a different way that was more efficient, used less energy to break the hydrogen away from the oxygen and to burn it in his vehicle through electrical resonance. Maybe it wasn't, instead of brute force, he was using, technique. Maybe. to do it. And so the water fuel cell would split the water into hydrogen and oxygen gas, which would then be combusted back into water vapor in a conventional internal combustion engine to produce net energy. So this is why I kind of touched on gasoline plays more important parts than just the big bang in the cylinder. Right? Robert says some think that ancient people moved very large stones all over the world with frequencies. I think that's what he's saying, because he's talking about Tesla was very, very knowledgeable. Robert thought he was brilliant, but very smart or very eccentric, or both. So, yeah, there's a theory out there that I've read and heard about that the stones for the pyramids were moved with frequency, resonance, vibrations, whatever you want to call it. Don't know how. I don't know how people come up with that theory, but that's a theory. And they have, talking points. I like that. They have talking points that make it seem plausible. So here he took the Volkswagen engine and made it run on water, hydrogen, oxygen. Excuse me, but if you don't lubricate the top of the cylinder, the engine will eventually just stop running. Okay? Because like I said, oil's on the bottom. As the piston goes up, oil covers the bottom part of the cylinder. But the piston takes up a certain amount of space in there, so the top portion is never exposed to oil, because that's where the piston goes. Then as the piston comes down, like I said, the oil ring scrapes the oil off the side of the walls and puts it back into the oil pan. So as the piston goes up, I believe, and as I understand it, the gasoline mixture and everything is sprayed into there, and it coats the walls and makes it, lubricated. I'm sorry. So you get rid of that and you inject hydrogen into that, and you lose that lubrication. Maybe he overcome that somehow. You're right? Maybe he did. So that was his. He just took a Volkswagen engine, converted, which is beautiful. That's what everybody wants. That's what I want. I'd like to be able to take, my truck, and instead of putting gasoline in it, fill it with water, flip switch, whatever, I don't know. Make it run on water. Tow my camper. Okay? So he got investors, and they sued him, and the judge looked over things and said, this is a crock. Okay? So he was still going, he was still pushing, he's still saying this is true, and he still supposedly had people interested. Right, so this is kind of a snippet. On March 20th, 1998, while dining at a restaurant, him and his brother, all right, claimed that he was meeting with Belgian investors. And I think the more in-depth story I've heard, he went to the restroom or took a phone call or something. And when he came back, the investors were gone. It was just him and his brother, and he hadn't finished his meal. And he sat down and started eating his meal, and almost immediately, blood, he started choking. He ran outside. He was throwing up blood. And his last words to his brother was, they poisoned me. Okay? So Myers suddenly ran outside saying, they poisoned me. After an investigation, the Grove City Police went with the Franklin County coroner report that ruled Myers had high blood pressure and died of a cerebral aneurysm. Blood vessels, I think it blew up in his brain, is what it says. Some of Myers' supporters believe that he was assassinated to suppress his invention. One of the Belgian investors stated that he had been supporting Myers financially for several years and considered him a personal friend, and that he has no clue from where the rumors came. Okay? Myers' patents have expired. His inventions are now in the public domain, available for all to use without restriction or royalty payment. No engine or vehicle manufacturer has incorporated Myers' work. So, was his patent the whole story? They make you believe that was the whole thing, that you could duplicate his patents and make that run. But all smart inventors know you don't put everything into the patent because eventually it leaks, you know? Okay, so there was water being used, all right? Compressed air, all right? To me, this has the same kind of deal. There are no lubricants in the top part of the engine to keep the pistons from sticking, all right? But maybe they use Teflon. It's compressed air. There's no explosions this time, so no heat really. Well, there is heat generated with friction and all that kind of stuff. I won't argue that. So, yeah, a jet motor creates thrust. I mean, I'd love to make like a homemade jet engine or whatever, but I don't know, man. Them things scare me. Those things really scare me. So this thing, let's find the guy. What's the name of this? Zero emission cars from the future. Who made this? This is a Swedish company, I think. Where is it? By compressing air into the tank, the stored air will release, which can continue to move the pistons, drive shaft, and move the vehicles. So the cons of compressed air. The compressed air car can only achieve a maximum speed of about 35 miles an hour. Now this is just this one particular compressed air car, okay, not all of them, but I would assume they all have the same kind of drawbacks, okay. Refilling the tanks, you have to have, a car that was lightweight enough, efficient enough, so that when you filled your air tanks, you wouldn't have to fill them every 4 or 5 minutes. You couldn't run an onboard compressor. I mean, I guess technically you could. Just like in a Tesla, you could put you a generator, a gasoline generator in the trunk, or strap it onto the hood or whatever you wanted to do. Fire up the generator that then charges the batteries that then makes the Tesla go down the road. Same kind of deal here. You could fire up a gas powered compressor that would compress the air that would then make the car go. Just get you a damn gasoline car, All right. So it talks about fueling stations. Same kind of thing with electric cars. You'd only be able to go so far before you could refuel. You'd have to refuel, pump it up. But issues of refilling tanks, you could have an air compressor in the car, some type of fuel source, some fossil fuels. If you had a compressed air tank in the car, you'd have to implement some type of fueling station network that could speed up the process. With high pressure air pumps to fill up your air tanks. Refueling compressed air at home takes several hours, which isn't bad when compared to recharging electrical vehicles overnight. So this little guy is basically a concept car. They made it run and they did all that kind of stuff, just like human-powered cars. This would just be as easy to be a guy in there pedaling it as it is to have compressed air in there. So, compressed air, I mean, it sounds good, right? But, I don't know. Here's a little more on compressed air vehicles. Now, what these people are doing is a whole kind of different thing. Compressed air vehicles operate according to thermodynamic process. The air cools down when expanding and heats up when it's being compressed. And those are thermal energy losses and drains the capacity factor. This one goes into a lot of detail. So this one looks at the actual design of the engine that would use compressed air And so it's not like your typical piston internal combustion style engine. It's more of a rotary engine, as you can see, which is supposed to be more efficient even with gasoline engines. But, you know, it talks about the tanks too here, how you know, strong they would have to be. Let's see, go down here. I thought there was advantages. So you could use wind turbines to compress, and we go back to that. You know, you're at the mercy of the elements. Now, if you remember, I thought wind power would be good for generating electricity because the wind blows more than the sun shines. So they would use, you know, wind turbines potentially to run and compress the air. So that one, you know, when you're chasing 0, 0, 0 emissions, what I would be chasing would be, you know, if you've ever dealt with scuba tanks, you know those things are under high pressure. They're a very small, compact design, but you know, they're very dangerous because they are under extreme pressure, and only certain people, certain stations, you know, can refill them. So, you know, if you put that idea into a compressed air car, then you would think, well, if I had, you know, a scuba tank that, you know, I could run extremely high pressure in, then you'd have to make that safe, because if you were in a crash and it got punctured, you know, it would be, you know, the same deal, just an instant release of all that pressure, or, you know, not an instant release, maybe just it would just, you know, propel the car like a jet motor, because it would have that much pressure behind it and just, you know, do whatever, cause more damage. But, you know, compressed air is a possibility. You know, these things are usually use blades that are slick. They're not metal. They're some kind of composite, so they don't have the metal-to-metal surface like pistons and piston rings and things in a regular combustion engine. So these are specifically designed to do air, and I like that. I mean, you know, I like if you can get, it's got to be. Everybody's got, like before on my other show, 100 years has gone by. People have become accustomed to, I put the gas in, it stays in there all week. It stays in there. If I don't drive it for a week, I start it, I drive it then. It's just like nothing has changed. It's, you know, it's sitting there just waiting on me. You know, typically if you put a full tank of gas in there and you come back in it in 2 months, the tank should technically still be full. If you've charged an electric vehicle and you come back in 2 months, depending on the condition of the car and its age and the batteries and all that, you may not have a full charge anymore. Okay? So, that's, people have gotten used to over the 100 years. I will put gas in it. When I want to, I turn the key, it fires up, I drive it, I can bring it back, I park it, and I forget about it. This is how new alternative energies, if you're comparing it to, you know, internal combustion, have to be. That's what people want. They're not wanting to learn something totally new overnight. Okay? They're wanting to stuff whatever you've got, whether it's electric, hydrogen, air, into how we use it now. Okay? Because they don't want to give that up. Why learn something new? Make something new fit the way we've, you know, structured our lives. So compressed air, maybe there's people out there working on it. And supposedly there's another invention out there that, once again, uses less energy to do more work. So a guy that was talking about compressed air, like Tesla, this dude was working compressed air stuff. He had, you know, patents on all kinds of things, and one of them was some type of multiplier valve. And the way that I understood that it worked was, let's say you put 10 pounds on one side of this valve, 10 pounds of compressed air, PSI on one side, through this channeling and hammering, it would then take that compressed 10 pounds of compressed air and make it into, let's just say, 20 pounds coming out the other side. All right, so compression is just that. So if you have a cup of air, I'm just using it because my brain can work on that. If you have a cup of air at 10 psi, when it comes out on the other side and it's 20 psi, then it should be a half a cup, because you've compressed that air volume from 1 cup to a half a cup, and in that process, you've doubled the psi. Okay, but you don't have as much of it, even though you've got 20 psi. Okay, so like everything else, an engine's going to run off of, pressure, but you've got to have the volume there to make it go. So anyway, but this was a patent that this guy had. Apparently it was a multiplier. You put the compressed air on one side and it came out more compressed on the other, and it just did it on its own. It didn't have to have another electric motor in there to take that and compress it. So if you put compressed air on one side, it came and multiplied it through mechanical means or whatever and made it more on the other side, which is perfect for compressed air cars, because you could go up to your gas station, put 100 psi on this end of it, and it's filling your tank with 200 psi. So, that would be, and this, this guy's the same kind of deal. Run your car compressed air. I've got this miracle valve that, does it. All right, let's see. What was the other one? We want to save that one to the last. All right, wood gas. Let me get over here to this one. This is something that actually works, and they've used it, as you can tell, back like in World War II, and it literally works. I haven't seen it, but there you go. They use wood. Let's see if I can find this diagram. No, where did it go? I know, I'm making y'all sick. Okay, here it is. Whew. Excuse me. So, you put wood in here, and you have a fire, and it, of course, makes hot gas and smoke. That's captured. It has a precipitating tank, and then it gas cooler. So it's almost you producing on probably wood alcohol on the go with these things. All right, and this is gas filter. Then it has a blower, and to me the blower would be like a fuel pump. Okay, now carburetor in the engine. So if I'm thinking this is the way it's working, is it's creating wood alcohol on the fly, and you could do probably the same kind of deal with the corn mash steel, that we create ethanol on the fly. But the problem with ethanol is, you're going to put a lot of corn mash in that thing, and you're going to get 1 quart of ethanol out. It's not going to be able to make it on the fly enough that it's going to propel your car, right? But apparently, they could do this wood-fired car, and it would work. Let's see. The mobile gas factory takes a lot of space and can easily weigh a few hundred kilograms empty. The size of the equipment is due to the fact that wood gas has a low energy content. The energy value of wood gas is around 5.7 megajoules per kilogram. I know that doesn't make sense, but just listen. 5.7 megajoules per kilogram compared to 44 megajoules per kilogram for gasoline. So 5.7 compared to 44. Okay, so let's just say, 1 gallon of this wood gas fuel would be, 5.7 megajoules, and a gallon of gasoline would be 44 megajoules. And I know that's wrong. I'm just saying it's 5 point, not 57, 5 megajoules per kilogram. And what's funny here is natural gas has 56 megajoules per kilogram. So why aren't we using natural gas, people? It apparently has more stored energy per, kilogram than gasoline. So why aren't we using that? It's natural. It's the CO2 emissions. That's what it is. It's not about what fuel's the best. It's about what fuel doesn't create what everybody calls greenhouse gases. So basically you use wood or wood chips, you get them going, and you condense it, and basically you've got a refinery, a wood alcohol refinery in the back of your car. And that's what it runs on. Cool. And I think Jesse, not Venturi, Jesse James, the motorcycle guy, when he was doing his, make a car thing, whatever it was, I think he made one of these. Somebody made one and ran it not too long ago as as an example of how to, run something other than gasoline. All right. So the last thing I want to talk about is the Joe cell. Okay. So the Joe cell is this. It's I don't know, man. It's it's a device that means something different to several different people. So in its simplest form, they say the Joe cell is just a fancy hydrogen generator using electrolysis to make, separate hydrogen out of water. Okay. On the other end of that scale is the Joe cell is what is it? Orgone natural force capacitor, and it stores this orgone power like a capacitor for whatever you want to use it for. Okay. They say it will run a car. It makes cars more efficient. It will actually run a car. But you got to, this one. The device is made to function as a fuel source for internal combustion engines. It is made from stainless steel, water, and rubber isolator. It functions as a capacitor of sorts and accumulates environmental charge known as orgone. It has no moving parts. It's aesthetically elite and simple in design, but takes a miracle to get the sucker running right. Okay, so if it doesn't work right, it's your fault, not the Joe cells. It's your fault that it won't do, smoke and mirrors and make your car run and float across the ground. It's your fault you did it wrong. Okay, so it's basically stainless steel tubes inside each other, isolated so they don't touch. Okay, if you've ever messed with any of these hydrogen generators, they can't touch. Okay, so basically you want as much surface area exposed to the water with electricity running through it as you can without touching, because when you do, it shorts them out and the thing doesn't work right. Okay, so this one is supposed to be a super efficient, and I could see that. All right, in this picture it looks kind of fuzzy. This is it with power put to it, and this is all your hydrogen bubbles and everything being generated, like Alka-Seltzer. Drop Alka-Seltzer in water and all those bubbles fizz up. That's what happens when you throw power to one of these hydrogen generators. It just almost immediately starts separating the hydrogen from the water, and you catch it on the top and it burns. I mean, literally, if you have a vent on the top of one of these things, you could light a match to it and it would burn like a candle. Okay, this guy's made his into a stainless steel bucket. He's gone into all this elaborate detail on that they're cone shaped, they're stacked. There's 5-inch cones used as into the charging vat. The arrangement of the submerged into the stainless steel drum and electrified with DC power. You cannot create magnetism. That's one of the reasons they use the stainless steel. Okay, because it, when you throw electricity to it, it does become magnetized. All right, so ideally the entire cell should be fabricated from a single piece of 3/16 L stainless steel. Now, not just any stainless, it's got to be a certain kind. And that goes in, see, this plays a part into this Joe cell. If it doesn't work, it's your fault. What kind of stainless steel did you use? Was it one piece? How big are your cones? Are they separated? What rubber did you use? What kind of wire? What kind of battery? So use only DC batteries as a power source. Batteries do not create any backflow or frequency pulsing. Further understanding can be acquired by learning about cold electricity, originally discovered by Nikola Tesla. Okay, so there's all kinds of Joe cell people out there. From it's a really good hydrogen thing to Joe cells saved my life and cured me from toenail cancer. So it's across the board. There's of course people that are almost cult-like with it. There's people that say, hey, yeah, that's a pretty good design. It makes hydrogen. That's pretty cool, and it's pretty. Okay, and then there's people that say this is just witch's brew. It's the devil's work. So one other Joe cell that I kind of like was this one. Okay, this one is MwM Healing Plus Power ×2 squared, power squared. All right, so he's taken, instead of cones, this dude is using spheres. And say, okay, MwM cell car installation instructions, MwM cell for healing, MwM cell kits. So this is the whole thing. Now see, I don't see if we can get that picture, but they're using probably stainless steel sphere, half spheres, and then they're insulating them with rubber, I'm sure. And then if you look at this, in and out, that kind of stuff. Get your own MwM cell working. We have various kits to suit your needs. Fully prepared MwM kits include stainless steel spheres, cut measured spacers, stainless steel bolts, nuts, and threaded rods. Let's see what a complete kit for a MwM cell is. Oh, not working. Oh well. Bummer. Let's see, philosophy and theory. Does this work? Healing with the cell. That's always interesting. Okay, so there are different sessions. Is the MwM cell better for healing than it is for running a car on water? It is now the second day of the new year of 2011. It was in 2004 that I began developing the MwM cell after having studied and worked with the Joe cell for a while. I became part of a Joe cell discussion group and learned a lot about the technology. So I don't know. That's a big long story. But like I said, it's anywhere from it heals my toenail cancer to it's pretty good for creating hydrogen. So those were some of the ones I didn't get to cover that I thought were interesting. The MwM and the Joe cell I think are very interesting. You ought to look at it. But like I said, there's there's people all across the board on that thing, all across the board, and they get into polarizing your gas lines. That's another thing that is kind of hand in hand with this Joe cell thing. It's all about the flow of energy of the car itself. So not only is the car running off gasoline, but you've got to get its energies flowing north to south, positive to negative, get them all, in a line so that it runs more efficient. And, they'll tell you, you need to energize, run your gasoline through a tube. One of the things in the 70s, and this comes back to increasing gas mileage, not necessarily increasing the life of your energy. But there was a guy that came up with a carburetor that supposedly got 70 miles to the gallon that was taken out by big oil. And one of the things they attributed his extreme gas mileage was heating the gas. So it was preheating the gas before it went into the engine to make it a vapor before it goes into the engine, which, is running lean. You can run a lawnmower, and I've tried this. You can take like a vacuum hose, right? Like off your, it's the same size vacuum hose. There's little carburetors on the gasoline engines. You can take it, and once you get the thing running, hold it over the gas can, take the other end, stick it over the end of the carburetor where it's sucking air in, and cut the gas off. And what it'll do is, if you've got it, enough airflow, because you can't just, it's got to be air in there too. It's got to be able to suck the vapors out of the gas can through the hose into the carburetor with air. And if you do it and get just the right airflow through the hose, the lawnmower will run on nothing but gas fumes, with no gas going into the carburetor except what it's breathing, the fumes out of the gas can. It'll work. Now, how long will the lawnmower run? I don't know, because you're running it strictly on fumes, literally, and it's going to be running extremely lean. So you're going to be losing that top cylinder lubrication. But it will run. You can run a gasoline off just fumes. All right? And it's the same kind of thing if you've ever looked in the car. They vent the gas tank through charcoal and then back into, the tank. So all that gas, as you shake it, if you've ever shaken up a gas tank or a gas can, you know it builds pressure. If you ever left one out in the sun, you know it builds pressure. That's it evaporating the gas. Now there's a bunch of fumes in there. And as y'all well know, if you don't know, you should. Liquid gas does not burn. The gas vapor is what burns. It's what explodes. So if you ever pour gas down a groundhog hole, and then you sit the can down 4 or 5 feet away from it, you're just about ready to blow your brains out. Trust me. You need to take that gas can 40 feet away and somehow lob that match towards the groundhog hole, because when it hits and that gas is vaporized in that tunnel and in his burrow, when it hits, I would not want to be the groundhog, because it fills that thing with gas fumes, and when it hits, they just immediately ignite, and it just boom. But it will travel back on you. You spill it around your feet, the fumes, it'll travel back on you. Got to be careful. Do not do that. Do not use gasoline to kill groundhogs. Do not light gasoline to burn your weeds, your fire pit, or anything like that. Gasoline is very dangerous. So anyway, that's alternative fuels revisited. Got to talk about the Joe cell. Robert didn't use any periods because he was the only dude, slinging out comments. Appreciate him showing up. And so, hey, Robert, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, man. Since you're here all night, this coming Thursday, I think I'll take you out to lunch and buy you, whatever you want on the menu. What do you think? I know. I know. That's just the kind of guy I am. Just for you, because you show up all the time. Poor Clell. He didn't show up, so I don't guess he gets to go. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Love the Minutes with Milo show. Gonna take Robert out, get him whatever he wants. Shoot, man, we'll go to Outback if that's where you want to go. We'll go to Outback. You can buy you that ribeye. All right. Like, subscribe, tell everybody. I'm up to 76 subscribers. I'd like to have, 10 or 15 watchers every night. We'll go back to that. That'd be pretty cool. But anyway, appreciate everybody that's watching it, going to watch it, has watched it, watched part of it, leave a comment, do all that kind of good stuff with YouTube, make me popular. Anyway, until next time, probably Thursday, will be another Survivor recap. Unless somebody else has got something, I'll talk to you about anything pretty much. So anyway, appreciate everybody. Good night. Sleep tight. Don't bite the bed. I hope you don't.